Doing the work is hard. Not doing the work is even harder. Trust me, you don't want to leave anything on the table. Life's too short. And I think everyone's life is too worth not diving in and doing the work. Because once you start making these ahas, you start connecting the dots and you start seeing the patterns in your life, you're like, oh, I do that because of that. Hello and welcome. My name is Gino Barbaro, one of the co-founders of Barbaro 360, and I am here joined by my beautiful co-host, Julia Barbaro, on the Julia and Gino Show.
Gino, it's funny because we sat down today and I feel like all we've been talking about is money lately. Like that's the topic of our conversation. We were up till midnight last night talking about money.
The important question is, my birthday's coming up.
Yeah, I know.
Did you hook me up?
Yes. Laura and I went to the town center and my rule was we're only buying for Dad and Michael because Michael's birthday is as well. But so yes.
Not with a 10-year-old. I don't believe that.
100%. Everything we bought. We did buy lunch and coffee. Yeah.
Well, listen, today's guest is amazing. I picked up his book, Start Thinking Rich. Today's guest is Dr. Brad Klontz. He's a clinical psychologist, certified financial planner, and leading voice in the field of financial psychology. As a New York Times bestselling author and associate professor at Creighton University, Dr. Klontz has dedicated his career to uncovering the hidden beliefs and behaviors that shape our financial lives. His research has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and CNBC. If you've ever wondered why smart people make poor money choices, Jewel, or how to break generational patterns, this conversation will give you the insight and tools to transform your financial future. Welcome to the show, Dr. Brad. How are we doing?
That's great. My mom wrote that. I thought she did a great job with it, really hyping me up. I mean, you delivered it perfectly. Thank you. Thank you.
I'm the hype man. You know, I got to bring the hype. Well, listen, let's start out by being a little controversial. Start thinking rich. What does that mean to you? When you hear that and you're saying start thinking rich, what does that mean to you?
It's even worse than that. So I don't think I've ever really talked about this on a podcast. And the original title was Stop Being Poor. And so Start Thinking Rich, controversial. I mean, that's even more controversial. Oh my goodness. Like, what are you saying? And really with my thought with the Stop Being Poor is that in itself is a intervention as far as I'm concerned. It's like, wow, what? I was just actually writing a Facebook post as I was getting ready for this. I just went off on a tangent. But, you know, I know people right now personally that I love that are sitting on the porch right now, midday, drinking a couple beers, smoking a cigarette, talking about how the rich man is keeping them down. And that was what I heard growing up. It was the rich man doing this, the rich man doing that. And I was like writing a letter to them on Facebook saying, hey, you know what the rich man's doing right now? Well, first of all, they're at work. Okay, number one. Number two, they're driving a used Toyota, not your brand new F-150 that you leveraged everything to get. They're investing before they're buying cigarettes and beer. And what they're not doing is listening to people telling them that success is impossible because of blah, blah, blah. And I just get so fired up and passionate about that audience because that's where I came from. I grew up lower income, broken family. This is my ninth book, by the way. The rest of them were very therapeutic. I'm a psychologist. And then this one, I was like, all right, so let's say I got somebody who's what we would say in psychology in the action phase of change. So they're ready. They've had enough. You know, I'm tired of suffering. I'm tired of all this. Dr. Brad, just give it to me straight. And then I imagine myself getting up and shutting the door because I don't want anyone to hear what I'm about to tell them about what the actual truth is. And that's what I wrote in this book.
I can go so many different directions. The first thing is stop being poor. I love it. But you should have said stop having a poor mindset. Because to me, it's broken down into the poor mindset, the middle class mindset, and the wealthy mindset. And if you can understand what wealthy people do, what their habits and what their outcomes and what their decisions are, a wealthy person sees opportunities in the problems. A poor person's mentality only sees problems in the problems. And I can attest to that as well. I grew up sort of like you did. We had a lot of problems going on. As I saw wealthy people, the distinction I saw was they're doing a lot different kinds of habits, and they're also looking at those problems, but they're learning from those problems and those opportunities. So, I mean, if you want to expand upon that, because I'm sure you must see that every day as well.
Yeah, actually, in the book too, we define poor as a mindset. Mm-hmm. Broke is you have no money. And by the way, I know a lot of broke people who have no money who, after a 3-minute conversation, I'm like, oh, that's a rich person right there. They just don't have the money yet. So for me, it's like, it's totally, totally different. Like broke is a temporary condition, but if you're poor and you have a poor mindset, you're going to be broke forever. So for me, it's all about snapping out of that. And there's one thing you said there that rang a bell for me. And part of my research and part of what we've stuck into this book has really drawn on the field of psychology for like almost 100 years now. And it's this concept of like locus of control. And an internal locus of control is really what you want to have if you want to be successful in education, in relationships, in life. And it's essentially where you look at problems that are happening in your life, and the temptation is to blame it all on your wife or whatever, right? The government, the corporations, whatever, politics, whoever's in charge. Oh, it's so tempting and it feels so good. You know, I walk in the door, my wife's grouchy, and if I just, you know what, in my mind, I'm just like, doesn't she know how hard I work for this family? She's not appreciating me, whatever. And it's like, I just feel really, really good about myself in the moment. It's not very good for the relationship, okay? And if you're blaming the government, I get it. If you're blaming politicians, I mean, they're a bunch of crooks. Okay, let's just all start there. But if you're stuck there, you're never going to take any action. You're never going to move forward. And all the research that has been done, including the research I've done on income, net worth, if you look at what's happening in your life, the outcomes you're getting in life, and you attribute them to yourself, that's where the power is. That's where the transformation is. And that's where the happy marriage is.
Well, I talk about marriage. I think that's like the number one issue. Is that correct? Is that in marriage, money is the number one issue, whether it's like physical, financial, or just your background. And I think that's where we started having the money conversation, and it completely changed. I mean, we've been married for quite some time, and
quite some time.
And it feels like when you said 28 years, I'm like, that can't be right, but it's almost there. But I think for me, Dr. Brad, I just gave him the power to be like, yeah, you're in charge of the money, and I don't want anything to do with it because I don't want that responsibility. I'm afraid of it. All I heard is certain things, and I stayed away from it. And the more Gino got into books like yours, the more I would cringe. And then he writes this book called Happy Money. And I'm like, what is this? And so there's that thing going on. I'm like, I need to work on this. And I think that was a big eye opener for me. And so talk to those people out listening where they're having money issues, but in a way where I use the word, I trust my husband with the money. And I do 100%. But I have no input. And out of fear, out of worry, and out of uncomfortableness. And so what would you say to someone like me?
Well, a couple things. So first of all, it's great that you connected with someone who doesn't share that exact mindset. Can you imagine where you would be if you both? Yeah, it wouldn't be good. It wouldn't be good. So that's really good. And I think sometimes we're often attracted to somebody who's very different than we are around money. And I think that's good. And obviously, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I think that one of the reasons my wife was really attracted to me, outside of the incredible good looks, was that, that I think she saw that I was I had a plan, and I was focused and I was responsible around money. And it's not that she was irresponsible at all. I think she saw that and she was like, oh, that's good. That would be good for me. She comes into my life and I have lawn chairs for furniture. I got a ping pong table in the living room. She's like, maybe a couch would be good. And at first I was appalled. A couch? I'm not going to spend money on a couch. And, I think though that I was attracted to her for different reasons too. And part of that was probably a more comfortable life. And so I ended up getting a couch, and she's right. They're way more comfortable. But I feel like she was able to balance me out some. And the reason I say that too is I had this initial, I was so anxious about this idea that we're going to be spending some money. And so I would say I have a much healthier relationship with money since I met my wife, because I'm able to spend now and not feel guilty or feel terrible about it. And I'm able to enjoy my money because she was able to bring that element for me. But so I think that's good. That's great. There is a danger, though, around just putting your head entirely in the sand, and for many reasons. But statistically speaking, Julia, you are going to have to do money all by yourself at some point. And you guys have a great marriage. So it'll just be the statistic on end of life statistics, but things can happen, right? And things, half marriages end in divorce. And I don't think like that with my own marriage. But when it comes to my wife and I talking about money and me bringing her in more, I would say it's a real similar relationship set up from the start with us. But we talk about it together because we have kids, and we want the kids to be okay. And she needs to know where things are. And, she can actually help me make better investment decisions, frankly, because when all the research I've done too, married people have healthier beliefs around money. They have way higher net worth, by the way, way higher than single people at the same age. And it's like 10x in your 20s and 30s, by the way, too. So I'm very pro-marriage and pro that committed relationship for many reasons, including the fact that you're going to be confronted around your own blind spots around money when you have someone else who's involved with you intimately.
Dr. Brad, the thing that changed us is when we discovered our relationship with money ourselves and how different we were. I was a saver, son of immigrants, taught to work hard. And my wife, was the opposite. and it's okay. We got together and I was like you. I had a shoebox. Money's there whenever we need it. Let's not overspend.
Yeah.
I had fear and I wanted to control the situation. And then when I decided to tell her I want to become financially free, she's like, hey, babe, I'm already financially free. I don't got to go to work. I got money in a shoebox. But I didn't convey to her what that actually meant. And once we started discussing our relationships and how different we were and what our goals were, everything started to change. There was still a little fights and bickering, but at the same time, we were sort of on the same page. And I had empathy for her, how she was raised around it. And she saw how I was raised around it and how I became sort of a self-tyrant around not trying to punish her, but of what you call money scripts, my limiting beliefs around what am I going to do if I run out? That's my fear mindset. That's my scarcity mindset. And once I could convey that to her, she's not there yelling at me being a Mr. Cheapo. She can understand why I'm being a cheapo.
Yeah, I think
and maybe
I
she
agree.
can help me get out of that mindset and, not have a ping pong
Well, I
table.
think that's the thing is we knew each other's background from the beginning, but we never actually sat and like listened to the point where I felt like I was in the story, watching him as a child and him with me, single mom, the whole, not me, my mother, us working all the time, all of that background. And he heard that before, but he never actually listened.
And I never witnessed it. I never felt it at that visceral
That
level.
was
Her mom's going to work, 2 jobs, can't make ends meet. She doesn't, that whole thing.
Right.
Money scripts. Let's touch money scripts in the book because I think it's really powerful. It really conveys what we're talking about. Can you describe those a little bit to the listeners?
Sure. And I gotta just say this though, that so I've worked with many couples in conflict around money. And by the way, I don't even care what they're arguing about. Like they want to convince me that they should do X, Y, or Z with their money. I could care less what they actually, but really what I do is I have them do exactly what you described. It's a whole conversation that I outlined because nobody talks about it. And it's like, it's so easy to be mad that someone's trying to control your spending. And it's like, why is she trying to control my spending, for example? And then you realize, well, if you actually sit down and witness, I love that word, witness the story of what it was like for them growing up, all of a sudden that anxiety, because you're going to experience it as they're just trying to control you. And then it's like, whoa, that comes from a deep place of fear based on an experience. And all of a sudden it's just, you start to have compassion for what's going on. Most people aren't even aware of their own stories. And those types of experiences, segue into your question, lead to beliefs around money. So if you grow up in poverty, for example, you might have the belief that there's never enough money. There's never enough money. And that becomes baked into your subconscious. And that is reality for you. That is reality. And we might call that a scarcity mindset. Now, what I've seen in our studies too, is that people who have this, there'll never be enough money mindset, if it's anchored with really, really strong emotion. So for example, growing up poor, that's a very sometimes traumatic experience, like and it's visceral. What you find is people will take like a dramatic behavior around it. And that's not easily changed because they have all that emotion attached to it. And so people will tend to be like radical savers and investors, like so fearful. It's like the Ebenezer Scrooge, which was the subject of my first book, actually, was looking at his trauma and why he was so tight-fisted around money. The belief you'll never have enough money. Oh no, so I need to save. I need to invest. Meanwhile, living a life of poverty, really, when you look at it from the outside, you're like, who would want to live in that life? That's terrible. You're recreating the exact same life, even though you got a bunch of money in the bank. What's the point of that? Or they become free spenders. It's like, there'll never be enough money, so why bother trying? I'm not even going to try. Run up the credit card, spend all the money you got. And so it's really, really important to identify these money scripts. They're typically subconscious for us. We often inherit them from our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our culture, our religion. I mean, there's all sorts of sources of input related to these. Most people aren't aware of them, but they predict your income, your net worth, your credit card, your relationship with revolving credit, a whole host of financial behaviors. So if you want to understand why you are the way you are around money, if you want to change what's happening in your life around money, it starts with money scripts.
Hit me, baby. What you got? You looking at me like you're gonna?
No, it's interesting. It's very strange to me that this is the number one topic we've been talking about lately. And I think that money is so available for so many people, and I think that it's ruining, like you, Dr. Brad, that you're talking about. People are making a lot of money, and they're terrified because they don't know. Because even when we started making money, there was a point where I'm like, wow, maybe it's easier not to because you're doing the trust and you're with the kids. What kid's going to take it over? And I'm actually thinking the other day, I was talking to Michael, we have one boy and then 5 daughters. And so, of course, Michael gets the burden of taking care of the girls financially, which is something to talk
I
about.
don't think that's going to be the case.
I know
got a
it is
couple-
not.
got a
I know
couple
it's
in the
not.
back.
But then
Don't
there's
worry,
that
baby.
burden of maybe it'd be easier not to leave them anything. It's just a thought. It's a thought.
I wrote the book, Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy.
Yeah.
I'm teaching them to become financial stewards, but also I'm passing on our values, and I'm hopefully that they pass on the values of it, and that money is just a tool. I think money does not corrupt a person. I think it reveals a person, because money is the symptom. We're talking about these problems like you don't want to share. It's just a symptom.
Yeah.
You're talking, Brad, so
well, that's my point. The
excellently
feeling that
about
I
the root
had
cause.
of maybe it'd be easier just not to leave on. Like, I want to know what that is. Oh, God.
Because you didn't make it. That's why I'm the one out there making it every day. You're making me work, and you're like, I don't need the money.
I was going to the beach.
I see the color. I see the hair. You're looking good, girl.
No, but seriously, what is that fear of, or that worry, or that, my gosh, it'll be easier if we didn't have it?
Well, I mean, money does bring different complexities. And here's the real issue. We got to go real deep now. Okay, so we're going to go deep back into history. I wasn't planning on doing this, but we're going back to 100,000 years ago. Okay, most of our time on this planet has been in small hunter-gatherer groups of people. So about 100 to 150 closely related people. And we have similar amounts of money. There was no money. We have similar amounts of stuff, arrows, goats, whatever it is we got. And a lot of our financial fears and behaviors really can be understood through this lens of evolutionary psychology. And so essentially what has happened to you, Julia, is that you were born in a certain tribe and you knew how to work that tribe. And, probably if you're really hard off, why would you want to think about money? So first of all, it's not going to help you, at least from your sense, just going to have to work anyway. And it feels miserable to think about it. So look, let's just not think about it. Money comes in, we'll spend it. Whether we do that responsibly or not, who knows? But we're just going to focus on other things because this feels terrible. And we don't see any sort of, path forward or whatever. We're feeling a sense of hopelessness. So that is perhaps the tribe you grew up in. Let's not look at money. Let's not pay attention to it. We're going to survive. We're going to try to be happy, get as much joy as we can out of life. And now all of a sudden you are in a very different tribe. Okay. And this other group over here, they do things very differently. They have things like trusts. They think about what are we going to do with this wealth and how do we empower our kids or perhaps give them opportunities without spoiling them and ruining them, and making them dependent on money and lazy and struggling in life. What the heck are we supposed to do? And that is, I talk about this as a socioeconomic herd. I call it a financial comfort zone. I got a lot of words for it. But essentially, you're going to another tribe and you don't know the language. You don't know what people do. Meanwhile, people who've grown up in that, they're comfortable in it. This is something, we talk about trust. This is what we do. Yeah. What kind of trust do you have, as you're drinking coffee? Oh, I don't know. We do this, we do that. Oh, well, we do this, we do. Those aren't conversations I had growing up. And so essentially, it's almost like you have to imagine yourself, you're moving to another country and you got to learn the language. What are the customs? How do people dress? How do they talk? That's probably the phase you're in. And so all that sense of discomfort, absolutely normal.
Okay,
that is good.
I'll get you through. I'll push you through.
Thanks,
listen, getting back to the book, I love the book. We're going to talk a little bit about the brain because the frontal lobe, you have like a couple pages on the frontal lobe. It blew me away. Then I started doing this certified money coaching and they talk about the three brains. I want to talk about that, but also you have biases in the book, the confirmation, Dunning-Kruger. Dunning-Kruger is great because everyone's talking about tariffs. Everyone's an expert on tariffs. And we found out a lot of Dunning-Krugers out there because nobody really knows anything about tariffs. So your biases are awesome. But let's talk about the emotional aspect of the brain and how people make decisions based on their emotions. And you shouldn't be making financial decisions based solely on your emotions. Maybe use logic, but why are they making that mistake? Go over that because I think it's really important for the listeners to understand what's going on when all of a sudden they make a decision and things may go wrong.
Yeah. So the easy way to think about it is, when you're stressed or angry or upset or whatever, you may eat in a way that you wouldn't normally eat. Same thing happens with money. So you're feeling bad, you're feeling stressed, whatever, you may spend in ways that don't fit with your budget. But there's a deeper thing that goes back to the evolutionary psychology thing. And that is that we are very wired to be attuned to what everyone else is doing around us. Like we'll tell kids like, oh, don't worry about what other people think. BS. Everybody worries about what everyone else thinks. And it's so funny when people talk about how they don't care what people think. They got this other little group over here that, is the goth. And it's like, well, you're wearing that black lipstick. Oh, I'm wearing this one, So we all have a tribe. Yeah. We're very worried about what they think about us. And so it plays out in so many different ways. So the stock market's going up. Oh, it is? Oh, should we all buy? The herd runs this way. And think about it. Any ancestor you may have had who, if 150 people in your tribe get up and run west and you just sit there, gnawing on your deer leg you got picked off by a predator. Like, so the whole idea of not running with the herd just got baked out of the DNA a long time ago. So we are very prone to do this. I was thinking during COVID too, I found myself telling my wife, really good prefrontal, by the way, prefrontal cortex, list of reasons about why it made total sense for us to get a Sprinter van. And because we were going to do all this, and I've got 2 kids, and look, all the stuff we're going to do, we need one, and it's so funny because I had thought about this for 6 months, 12 months. This was on my mind. I had all this great rationale. And then I live in Boulder, and I bike to work. It's so awesome, or walk. And so this one time I was walking and I noticed a Sprinter van and I was like, I wonder how many of these are between literally my 1.5 mile walk from my home to the office. And I counted 12 of them. Wow. 12 decked out Sprinter vans. And it was just like, oh my gosh. So I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm a psychologist. You could argue I'm one of the world's leading experts. And here, this thing slipped in through my subconscious brain into my prefrontal cortex about why I needed a Sprinter van. Really, I needed a Sprinter van because everyone else had a Sprinter van, but I didn't see it. I couldn't see it.
You went from a ping pong table to a Sprinter van. I'm just saying, you upgraded, man.
Oh, hey, I had a whole rationale why it made total financial sense. Don't get me wrong. It was an investment.
I'm hearing that lately.
Yeah, you're hearing that lately.
My husband's ideas.
21 harsh truths. Can you give us a couple of harsh truths?
Ooh, yeah, there's some pretty harsh ones. Like for one we have is, if you want to get rich, you got to get rid of your poor friends. And it's like, ouch. Now, remember though, I just redefined what poor friends are. So poor friends have a poor mindset. And so I know poor friends who make 6 figures. Their mindset is they're going to be broke their whole life. They're going to constantly be upgrading and have no money at the end of the day. And if you're hanging around with people like that, you're tribal. You're going to get sucked into it. And so the idea is that if you are in a certain place in your life right now, I don't care if it's money or anything else like that. Let's say you want to have a happy marriage and you're hanging around with 5 guys and all they do is complain about their wives. Do you think you're going to have a happier marriage? No, you're going to start falling right into it. Same thing with money. And so whether or not people say, oh, I want to become a multimillionaire, I don't know any multimillionaires. It's not about going and finding multimillionaires, although you will eventually. Find people who are on the path to becoming one. Find somebody a step or 2 ahead of you. How are they thinking about money? Oh, they're investing. You're not investing. What are they doing? Start there. So that's a pretty harsh truth. Another one that we got some blowback for was, it's not your fault if you were born poor, but it's your fault if you die poor. And this one is a rough one too. And actually my co-author, Adrian, he's the son of immigrants from Mexico. And that's what his dad told him. And so he felt like, here I am, my family sacrificed to get us here. I can't blow this. It's a huge opportunity. We talk about immigrants in there too. Like the richest people I personally know who've gone from 0 to billionaire are immigrants who got here with nothing. And I just find it so fascinating because I'm thinking of one individual in particular who nothing, father deceased, came over, couldn't speak the language, failed 2nd grade, billionaire now. Ironically, so is his brother, totally separate paths. But he's over there working the fry machine as a 15-year-old going, I'm going to own this place. And not only that, I'm going to own hundreds of them. Which he went on to do. And I'm just wondering what the other sort of like lower middle class kids are in there thinking, 14, 15. They're not thinking that. Okay. They're thinking, I'm going to get my paycheck and I'm going to get a new truck. And it's so fascinating to me. And one of my things I'm really interested in is studying the psychology and the mindset of self-made millionaires and billionaires, because I realize they're so radically different from somebody who's in the exact same socioeconomic group, exact same culture, race, gender. I mean, they look exactly the same, except their mindset is totally different and they just go totally different directions.
Dr. Brad, before my wife asks the next question, I can sort of give you my insights as to how to become self-made millionaire. For me, I was struggling early on during the Great Recession. I had a restaurant for 15 years, doing really good, but I got stuck. And what I think people who become self-made don't make excuses. They have no victimhood in them whatsoever. They may, but they have to tend to shed it, and they take responsibility for everything. If you can adopt that, if you're a 50-year-old and you're sitting there going, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this job, I hate it, you're a victim. But if you're sitting there going, I'm going to own this thing, all of a sudden you have responsibility, you have long-termism, you have a vision, you're able to set goals. That's somebody who is ultimately going to succeed in life. And if something does come up, right, there's 2 roads. All of a sudden the road is more difficult. They know how to navigate that road. They won't quit on that road because they'll figure it out. I think that's where a lot of immigrants, they come over here with nothing. They have no expectations. They're just really happy to be here. They're happy to have an opportunity. They've already come from a different place that was a lot rougher. They're coming here and it's like, man, this is great. I've got an opportunity to actually make money here. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about fatherhood. fatherhood, because, you know, you were raised a certain way, your wife was raised a certain way. Around money, how have you changed over the years? Your two children. How has your parenting changed over the years, and like what is it like now?
Oops, that's interesting. My kids are young, so hopefully I haven't made too many mistakes yet, although I know I have.
But I want to know, what are mistakes to you? Because you are an expert, and I want to know
You're making the
what to
man wince. He's
avoid.
wincing right now. It's like, so you just
No,
shot
it's
him in
good.
the
It's
foot.
good. Hey, I take total responsibility for all my failures. And by the way, I love people who can point them out. Like if you can point something out that I'm doing wrong, oh my God, I love you so much. And not only that, I'm going to want to talk to you all the time. I'm going to be like, okay, what am I doing wrong now?
You feel my pain. Exactly. That's what I've been saying for the last 28 years. I get the look too. Not only the teardown, I get the look. So
All I know, if he wants to buy a Sprinter van coming up, I know where it's coming from. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'll send you the spreadsheets.
Thank you.
Back to the page.
You know, I feel like my thing that I worry about is that my kids are having a very different experience of life than I had. And I don't want them to lack hustle, if that makes sense. I don't want them to lack
100%. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm worried about it.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing too, and this is the thing I'm wrestling with, similar to you, Julia, around this new tribe. It's like I also don't want them to have to start with nothing again and have this like go to bed hungry. Like, that's good for you. Go to bed hungry. You get nothing from me. I mean, I don't want that either.
Right.
And so for me, I've been researching and learning from people who've been doing this for generations and looking at families who are really, really good at it. So they come from wealth, multi-generational wealth, and their kids are hustlers. Wow. And as a matter of fact, in my last book, Money Mammoth, I sort of explored this idea, and I used ancient Rome as with sort of the mindset here, because when you think of somebody like Julius Caesar, you know, I'm not an expert in Roman history or anything, but it's like, here's somebody who's like grew up in the richest class, you know, in ancient Rome. And all of a sudden they're out on campaign, risking life and limb. Like, why are they doing that? Like, they could just be staying home, living a life of luxury. And I found out, and this is kind of cool, little thing and I use this with my kids, by the way, they had something called an ancestor room. And so once you hit around middle age, they would make a wax mask of you, and they would actually wear it in your funeral, but they would keep it in the house. So you have people walking in your house, and then there's a room, and it's got all these wax figurines of your ancestors. Now imagine that, going back for generation after generation. And there'd be a plaque there that had their highest political rank that they ever achieved. And so as a kid, it's like you'd walk in that room, and I can just imagine your parent going, look, this is your great, 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 great grandfather, and this is what he did for the family, all the way up to your grandfather. And then the question is, what are you going to do for our family? How are you going to take us to the next level? And I realized that money it was connected to something much deeper than just what it can do for you. It was an entire family legacy. And so what I try to do is I try to talk to my kids about our family legacy. And even my grandfather, who passed away in his trailer park, you know, I look at him as somebody who got us to the next level, because my mom went to college. And I mean, to me, that's amazing to go from that to your daughter, and then look at what I did with what was given to me. And then the question is, and I tell my kids all the time, look, I have resources now. I'm putting you in the absolute best schools there are. I'm trying to give you the absolute best experiences, and I can't wait to see what you do with it.
That is awesome.
Dr. Brad,
I love that.
Would you like to hear my mistakes? I'll share you my mistakes.
We don't have time.
My oldest daughter is 25 years old. I'll keep this short and sweet. Really, this is important, seriously, because I can reflect on this. I was always too pushy with my children early on, trying to teach them about money, trying to make them read The Richest Man in Babylon, trying to make them read Rich Dad, Poor Dad early on, until I said, let me let it work itself out. And as they got older and they started opening businesses, all of a sudden I'm on quarterly accounting calls with them. I've helped them open up LLCs. I've helped them invest in our own deals. And now they're coming to me and asking me questions. And I'm trying to teach them price versus value. My 19-year-old daughter went to the dentist today. They wanted $900 for them to change take a retainer out. And she's like, well, that's 9 massages. She's a massage therapist. So she's already valuing that occupation at 9 hours. I could do not. So she said, let me come home. Let me call somebody else. She got on the phone, got a price for $190. That's what I'm trying to teach my kids, to be responsible with money. And I think the other thing that I love for them to do is to follow their passions. Whereas I didn't early on in my life, I want my kids to find something that they really love, really lean into it, and try to as best as they can to do that. Whether it's art, my oldest daughter's a missionary. She loves that. Lean into that. I think that's what we should do as parents. Give them the tools, prepare them, let them understand how to start making decisions for themselves, but also don't really dictate to them what they need to do. And I've been really guilty of that. That's probably one of my biggest things is you need to do this, you need to do that. Just being there and then not trying to push them too much, but let them make their own decisions. And then when they like something that you don't like, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, how are you going to make money as an artist? You're going to make an art. That's wrong. That's the wrong thing to do. If you love that, that lights you up. That's your happy money. Because when you sell something, you do something, that's what I want you to do. That's what God put you on this planet for. That's your unique gift. That's what I think parents should focus on.
I love it. I love it. I do sit down with my eldest and I say, hey, so tell me all the ways that you think I can improve as a father. I like to do that. I like to do that.
I did that last week.
Actually, can't handle it.
I did that last week. I was like, it was really hard to take that advice.
See, Dr. Brad, I'm similar to you in the fact that I want to do better. So I'm like, kids, how am I messing you up? Like straight out. And they'll be like, all right, Mom, here are the things.
Here's the list.
Then they'll come to me and be like, Dad asked me. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, I'm not sure what to say. I'm like, that's okay.
Seriously, you didn't tell me that
conversation. And I think that's the beauty of it is that some of us, just tell me like it is. I just want to hear it like it is. And some of us, we need it to be, we need it to be over a nice dinner and so on.
I'm going to get back to this question.
Well, he was answering his question, I think, before I cut
him
off.
Well, by the way, it's harder for me to hear it from my wife. Like, it's interesting. Yes, like, the closer you are to the person, the harder it is to hear. So
and you could hear it from people like your patients. You could hear it from no problem. You're like, all right, sure.
Yeah.
Because you don't have that attachment.
Or my friends. Like, if I start to complain too much, yes. I mean, we give each other like about 2 minutes, and then we're like, all right. So what are you going to do about it, big guy?
Yes.
One of my last questions, I love to really get your thoughts on this because this is important. Many people inherit financial trauma or dysfunction. How can they start to create those new patterns? Because that's what we're talking about right now. We've got these old patterns. Let's take responsibility. Let's take awareness, consciousness. How do we start creating those new patterns? Or like you say, maybe adopting and going to new tribes. I love how you really laid that out because it's the visual for somebody. You're here. How do we get to here? How do we start healing?
Yeah, so I do want to leave room for the fact that it's easier said than done for some issues. And I don't want to even say some people. I want to say some issues within some people and probably some issue within all of us, frankly, where there's like trauma, and it just seeps into your subconscious. And there's like some unresolved grief or anger or frustration. And I do think that if, you're hearing this conversation, talking about money script, oh my gosh, I get it now. I have this belief. My parents gave it to me. It's because I grew up poor. Got it. Oh, I should start doing this and that. Great. And then if you find yourself that you just can't do it, you keep, fumbling the ball, you keep regressing, then I think it's totally worth every penny for you to get some therapy.
Yes.
And dive into it, man. And like get into the emotional aspects of it. Release some of that tension, do some of that healing. And then what I've noticed is then it's a lot easier for that stuff to sink in. But I will say this, that some of the stuff, man, it's hard. And like, I got this workaholism thing. And it's like, luckily I was able to trace it 2 generations ago. So my great grandfather was a lazy good for nothing. Mm-hmm. And so literally I'll be a workaholic because my grandpa's trying to make up for his lazy dad. It's just so bizarre. And so it really does help to understand that. But for years I'd have this like sense, I can't work out. I got to work. I got to keep working. And then I had young kids and I'm like, man, I don't want to be the father I had where I never saw him. I just not going to do that. But I would actually have to write it down. I wrote down a mantra I would read to myself so I could get up and leave the office. And it was something like, I've worked hard today. What I really value most is the relationship I have with my kids and my wife. I'm going to get up and I'm going to leave and I'm going to go home. I would read that. At like 5 p.m. because I had that motor inside of me. So I think sometimes it's the rewiring, especially on those beliefs. You got to rehearse it over and over, but you really have to connect it to your values. That's really the override. It's like a value override of a habit that doesn't serve your values.
Dr. Brad, I have a very similar situation as you do. I've always been an overachiever. I've always been a really hard worker. And I had to link it back to my 8-year-old self when my father gave me $2 to work with him all day at the restaurant in front of the whole family. And we really cherished hard work and we really valued making money. So my whole adulthood, I've been really busy and I've been slower these last couple of months and I've become restless. And through a money coaching session, I've actually pulled that pattern out. Started doing a little polyvagal breathing, changed completely. I'm I'm a lot more calmer now, and I'm a lot more aware of that. So even though you're down the journey, we've done it a lot. What I will say, doing the work is hard. Not doing the work is even harder. Trust me, you don't want to leave anything on the table. Life's too short. And I think everyone's life is too worth not diving in and doing the work. Because once you start making these ahas, you start connecting the dots and you start seeing the patterns in your life, you're like, oh, I do that because of that. Do I have to do that because of that? Is it empowering or disempowering? That's when you can start making some really great choices.
And I do know that your whole family benefits when you start working.
I thought you were going to say something fun. I'm going to make fun of me again. I was waiting for it, but okay.
What were you assuming I was going to say?
I don't know. I don't know. I
could have said a lot. I do hold back a lot.
I was buckling up for a second. Okay. Dr. Brad, where can the listeners get a hold of you? Where can they find out more?
Well, I'm at Dr. Brad Klontz on whatever social media platform you're on, where I fearlessly make a fool of myself every single day. On TikTok, I get much more foolish, but just to spread the message, man, of empowerment, of you can change your life. And that's really what I'm out there selling, if you will, on social media is I want to create that internal locus control. And so I'll have fun with it too. And I get a lot of flack for it, but I don't care. I love you way too much to let people sell you this idea that you're powerless because of blah, blah, blah. I don't even care what they say after that, because the system needs to do that, or the government's this or that or whatever. No, 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 no. I know people just like you, who look like you, who grew up in the same place you grew up, who, despite all that, have been able to create a better life for themselves. And I know you can do it too.
It's really a take us home, baby.
Well, I want you to do the ending. But Dr. Brad, seriously, I want to seriously say thank you because you're very awesome. My husband always gets these rich, money guys on, which I do like, but I have to say I was pleasantly surprised today.
So
very,
Brad,
very impressive.
What Julia means is thank you for not whipping out spreadsheets and just doing Excel and doing IRR and cash on cash, because that's not where her interests lie. I get it.
Yeah.
And that's what Dr. Brad is not about.
So awesome. Yeah.
She's a financial psychologist.
Definitely.
It all has to do with your relationship with money,
exactly.
with healing any kind of traumas that you have.
Right.
We're trying to look back, but not getting stuck in your past, taking a look at it, seeing where it happened back there, diagnosing it, trying to create a plan for where you are in the present and looking forward. Start with the end in mind. What do you want your life to look like? Not just from a money perspective, from every other perspective. And how does money permeate your life? How do you want to use money? Is money a tool for you? Is money the result for you? These are all things that, unfortunately, I've only learned in the last 5 to 10 years, and I'm trying to spread the message like Dr. Brad is. I haven't written 9 books yet. I've only written 5. That's okay. Dr. Brad's got 9. He's crushing it. Start thinking rich. I think that is the mantra for everybody. Let's start thinking rich. And how do you start thinking rich? By going to Dr. Brad's website, by buying his books, and by start working on yourself and your mindset. Dr. Brad, we want to thank you for being on the show, and we want to thank all the listeners for spending 45 minutes with Julia, Gino, and Dr. Brad on, I think, to me, one of the most important topics that we have. One of the last taboos in society, money. One of the last things, one of the last frontiers that nobody talks about and we're never taught. So if you want to learn, go over to Dr. Brad's website and buy his books. Thanks, Dr. Brad.
Thanks for having me.